Okay, just to go over a couple of things in Chapter 12, superclasses, subclasses, inheritance, interfaces, polymorphism, all those good things you need to know regarding what's in Chapter 12. So here I have a class vehicle. It has a couple of private instance variables. Now, subclasses will not inherit or get access to private variables. The only way you get access to them, if they're declared private, is to use getter and setter methods. And technically, subclasses, when we say they don't inherit, what we mean is that they don't get access to those instance variables. But as the objects get created and they're put on the heap, okay, those objects will have those variables, those instance variables. They just don't have access to them, and so we say, in a sense, they're not inherited, but they get put on the heap when the object is created. They just don't have access to them. So, and then here I have the no arcs constructor for vehicle, and if a object of a subclass does not construct itself using its constructor, it will use this default constructor for the superclass. So it will set MPG to 0. And then here is a constructor that an object of the subclass can use, passing in the miles per gallon, which is the preferred method because with these private instance variables, it's best to use a constructor to set them. And here I have getter methods. A getter method to get the miles per gallon, and this will just return the miles per gallon for that particular object constructed. Here I have a setter method to add gallons. And in addition to adding gallons, it's going to print out the message added gas. And then I have here a method to get the gallons. So again, I have getter and setter methods for the private instance variables that objects created will be able to get access to. All right, so that's the class vehicle. Now, here I have a class car that extends vehicle. So this is a subclass of vehicle. And notice here I'm calling the super keyword to set the miles per gallon of any car that gets instantiated. Okay, again, which is the preferred method. And here I'm overriding the method add gas that was in vehicle, or add gallons, I should say. So add gas, should be add gallons, but add gas or add gallons. Nonetheless, I'm overriding that method if I go back to car. And because I want a little more functionality than what's provided in add gas in vehicle, because add gas it increases the number of gallons and then it prints out added gas, but I want a little more functionality. And so I override the gas, passing in super because I want that functionality from the superclass, but I also, in addition, want to print out and clean windows. Okay, so even though I'm overriding add gas, I want the functionality from the superclass, so I'll call it super add gallons and then provide some functionality in this method. And then here, because all objects extend from object, okay, and object is a concrete class, and so object has 4 methods, one being toString, and so I'm overriding the toString method of the object class, which vehicle inherits from. Okay, so there, and so when I run this here, so I'm going to create a new instance of car, passing in 27. Remember, in car, passing in 27, and that's going to call this the constructor of the vehicle of the superclass, because again, miles per gallon is a private variable. Okay, so there I create an object of type my car, and then I'll print out the two, or call the toString method. Here, then I'll add some gallons, add 15, and then here I'll get gallons, and then finally I'll print my car get gallons plus gallons of gas. So here I'm actually using the setter method of the superclass and the getter method just to print out the number of gallons that particular car has, and then maybe add a little more verbiage to it. Alright, so here, let's see here. So when I run it, my miles per gallon is 27. Added gas and cleaned windows. So again, here's car. So super add gallons. So that will say added gas and cleaned windows. And then let's see here. And then the last thing it did was printed out my car has get gallons of gas. So I added gallons and then it printed it off. Alright, so again, illustrating concept of superclasses and subclasses, private variables, instance variables, and so on and so forth. And again, don't get confused. So when we say a superclass does not inherit private variables, what we really mean is they don't get access to those private variables. So they have to use the constructor or the setter and getter methods to work with them. Okay, so there. Now, now I didn't want to go over. So we're going to look at this interfaces. So here I have an interface. It operates like an abstract class. Okay, but with an interface you only have methods that you have to override or implement. So here I have two methods, public speak and then public void announce. Okay, no body, just the function or method declaration, but no body. Now here I have president, which is going to implement speaker. Okay, notice here, okay, because I'm implementing speaker, I do have to override the methods from speaker, implement them, and so implementing this method here is just going to say this is the President of the United States. When I call speak and then announce system out print line string. And then here I have a method that pertains just to president and is not being implemented, is not part of the interface for speaker. And I'm going to do this to illustrate what happens. Okay, so I'll be creating I'll be instantiating. Oh, yeah, okay, kind of instantiating a president, but you'll see I'm going to use speaker as a reference type, and then but object as president, and that's going to present a little bit of a problem. Okay, so I'll show you how to get around that. But here we go. So there's president, implement speaker. I'm overriding those two methods from the speaker class. Okay, so here, let's go here. Alright, so let me comment these out. Don't want that anymore. And then let's see here. Okay, so again, so this is what I was talking about. So my reference variable, I'm using the object speaker. I'm using speaker as a reference type. Okay, my reference variable is a speaker, so I'm using speaker as a reference type, but the object I'm creating is president. Okay, so when I create this new president, it only sees, because I'm using the reference speaker. Okay, here's my reference variable. Because I'm using the reference speaker, it's only going to see the methods in speaker. And the interface speaker, speak and announce. but my object type, but my object is new president. Or president, I should say, in president, it overrides the methods from speaker. It implements speaker, but then it has its own method. So if I go here, so I created, here I'll demonstrate this. So my reference is of type speaker, and here's my reference variable. My object is president. And then I want you to notice that if I go a speaker, period, see, it only sees those objects which were implemented in speaker, announce and speak. And then again, you have these other methods which are of the object class, right? ToString, get class, hash code equals, okay? So, but again, what you notice that that reference variable only sees announces and speak. And why is that? Because my reference type is speaker, okay? It's speaker. So, but it only sees that. Oh, so a speaker speaks. So now, what happens if I want, however, to call the method sign bills, which is of class president? Well, I can't not override it, but what I do is I typecast it. So I'm going to typecast the reference variable a speaker to president. So this is just called type, and this is done quite often, particularly when you're working with polymorphic arrays and those type of things. Okay, you've defined some methods, or methods like in president, that weren't implemented in the interface speaker or in another abstract class. So imagine that. I mean, this could just as well be another abstract class that you're inheriting from. But you've defined some methods in that subclass, if you will, that aren't in the superclass, and you really want to use those methods, okay, as you're iterating through an array. And so, provided you know what the object type is, you can just typecast that reference variable a speaker to that object, and now you have access to the methods that you have defined in that subclass. So now if I go this, so now you see, not only do I see announce and speak, but now I also get visibility of the sign bills. All right, so very important thing that you'll do quite often in programming. All right, so, oops. So there, I don't have 0 there. There we go. So now if I run this here, so if I run this, voila. So let's see here, if I go back to president, this is the president of the United States. Didn't do anything with the announce method. And then sign bills, what was in president? Okay, I will sign a bill. All right, so there. Now the last thing I didn't want to go over is, where are we? Okay, again, so I'm going to be working with subclasses and superclasses, but demonstrating polymorphic arrays, as well as somewhat how do you get over, or how do you overcome the fact that if you have a polymorphic array and yet you have a method in a particular subclass that's not in the reference object, how do you call that? And one way I just did that, as I said, by typecasting, which is what I did there. I typecast a speaker to president. I'll show you another way. So anyway, here, so I have monster. Okay, so I have this, so here's my class. This will be my superclass monster. And here I have my default no arcs constructor. And again, that's there so that if I create a subclass and I don't provide the no arcs constructor in that subclass, and yet I go to instantiate an object of that subclass, okay, it will call by default the constructor in the superclass. There's no arcs constructor. Remember, you need that. You should always have that there anyway. The no arcs constructor. All right, and then here, and so I only have one method in this class, public fright. and it would just, okay, so this here, so when I create a monster, if I will, okay, the default, the method here would be populate my beautiful darlings. Well, okay, but then I'll override this method and the subclasses I'll create. So let's take a look at some of these subclasses I create here. So here I have dragon. Dragon extends monster, and then I'm going to override the frighten method, and it's going to say I'm a fire-breathing beast. And then let's see here, vampire, and I override the method frighten, and it says I want to suck your blood. But then I've also now included another method that's not of the subclass monster, but this is a method that pertains to vampire. And this will say, but I can only do it at night. And then here I have a werewolf. And again, I'm overriding the fright method from monster, and it's going to say see you at the next full moon. Okay, so again, just to reiterate, here's my monster class. Basically, I just have one method, and then in those other classes, dragon, vampire, and werewolf, I overrode that method. But with vampire, I added another method. So here's my monster test drive. Okay, so here's my main method. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create those. I'm creating a polymorphic array of type monster. Now, okay. So monster MA equals new monster 4. I'm going to add 4 monsters. So for index 0, okay, I'll create a new monster. I'll just create a new monster here. Now again, my polymorphic array is monster, and then remember dragon, vampire, werewolf, they inherit from monster. But nonetheless, I'm going to create a new monster, and plop that into index 0, new dragon, index 1, new vampire, index 2, and new werewolf, index 3. And then what I'll do, I'll create a loop, an advanced loop, and so because my array, polymorphic arrays of type monster, so for monster M and MA, then I'll call the method for each monster. But here I want you to notice here, okay, because in vampire I have a separate method that's not part of the superclass monster. I do want to call this method as I'm iterating through that array. So what I do is I just do a test, and I say, so monster M, if M is of instance vampire. Now, why do I do that? Or exactly, so why is that am I able to do that? Because this monster reference and this reference variables, well, that's okay. I will assign various objects, monster, dragon, and vampire, to those references, or that reference variable index. Okay, multiple reference variables, if you will. But on the heap for each, so MA0, well, on the heap, it will know that I'm working with of type monster. On the heap, it will know that I'm working with type dragon. On the heap, it will know that I'm working with type vampire. Okay, so again, each dragon and vampire and werewolf on the heap is going to have those methods that were inherited from monster. Okay, but my reference is monster, and the only thing that monster knows, or the only method that monster has, is just frighten. Okay, so now I have to say, okay, well, if M is of instance vampire, okay, if M is of instance vampire, then what I'll do is I'll typecast M to vampire. You see, I'm going to typecast it to vampire, and then I'll be able to call that method. Now again, why do I do that? Because monster, or reference variable MA, it only knows, or it only has access to one method, and that's frighten. But yet I know there's another method of vampire, so I need to typecast M to vampire to be able to print out, to call the method say something. All right, and yeah, so that's another way. And using polymorphic arrays, if you have a object that has a method that's not part of your superclass and you really want to access it when you're iterating through that array, then, and if you know M is of type vampire, if you know that, then you can typecast it. And that happens frequently. Okay. Alright, but I didn't want to show you guys that. So when I run this here, so it will say again, new monster. So now notice monster is an index 0, so the first time through, I mean, it's going to populate my beautiful darlings, which is what that said, populate my beautiful darlings. And then the next one is dragon, and it will say I'm a fire-breathing beast. And then vampire will say I want to suck your blood, and then it's going to say but I can only do it at night. Okay. And then werewolf, which says see you at the next full moon. Alright, so there are some of the nuances and things you need to know regarding chapter 12. In the PDF that's out there, it did highlight some things so on that PDF, so make sure you really understand the things on that PDF and the material you'll find on AP Central in those videos. And then I would suggest again, after you've getting very good at this, go back through Head First Java and just read through it, and then you'll pick up more and more as you read more and more of that stuff, and it will all become very clear to you.